What's up, Commanders fans? I believe there's a move that we could possibly make that can get us right back in the NFC Championship. And that move is getting a guy like Jaylen Ramsey. And hear me out. I talked about this before, but I keep hearing it. And it seems like it could possibly be something that can happen. And like I say all the time, anytime you hear some noise about somebody we could possibly get, we end up not getting that person. And the reason is because we have a guy like Adam Peters who doesn't tell you what he's about to do. And if you're hearing something, it's not happening. So we've been hearing a lot about Jaylen Ramsey and how he's a good fit for us. He wants a team that's competitive. He wants to go to the playoffs. He wants to compete again. He's still got some life in him. And he feels like he's worth the amount of money that he wants to be paid. And when you're getting older in the NFL, the number one thing you want is a long-term contract and guaranteed money. And it doesn't seem like the Miami Dolphins is trying to get that to him. So if we were to acquire a guy like Jaylen Ramsey, what would that do for us? Because this is somebody that I wouldn't mind having on our team. One, because this is a guy that Dan Quinn thrives with. He loves this type of player, right? A guy that's physical, that's tall, that's big, that gives wide receivers something to worry about, right? And just to think, before last season, right, he came off of an injury, only played 10 games, and still made it to the Pro Bowl. That was the most recent time him being in the Pro Bowl, right? And last season wasn't phenomenal, but it was a full season for him. He played 17 games, and he had 2 interceptions. You know, he had 60 tackles. He had something to be excited for. You know, this is something that we would have wanted if we had him last season, because we had Benjamin St-Juste and Michael Davis out there doing the same things every single game. We had to rely on penalties and flags, and man, it was horrible. It was horrible. We couldn't get a decent game. And, you know, a lot of what they did went on the rest of the team. So you would have the defense working harder because of the flags. You would have Jaden Daniels have to throw his ass off, run his ass off, because he's already not getting help from the run game as much. And his wide receivers wasn't as good as we wanted them to be. And, of course, we were a team that was rebuilding, recalibrating, Dan Quinn likes to say. But we knew what it was. And we knew that Jaden Daniels carried this team last season. In the beginning, we carried Jaden Daniels in the first few games. But eventually, Jaden Daniels put the team on his back and got him to where he needed to be. And who knew he was going to continue to elevate in every single game and get us all the way to the NFC Championship in his very first year. So what we knew we needed last season was a guy that can be physical. And not just a guy that can be physical, but a guy that can play good coverage. And we thought we got that with Marshon Lattimore, but he wasn't ready. One, because he ended up turning into Benjamin St-Juste and Michael Davis. So he needed some more time to heal. And with him having all this time and a full offseason to learn the playbook, to let his body get some more rest, should allow him to play at his full potential this season. Because last season he had the hamstring injury and then he re-injured it. And it was just like his body wasn't catching up. So this season he shouldn't have any excuses. But it's the NFL and things happen. You never know what's going to happen. And this is the reason why you want to go out and get a Jaylen Ramsey. Because what happens when Marshon Lattimore is not ready? Or when Mike Sanders still maybe takes a sophomore slump? Or when Trey Amos is not ready to play at that high level against those elite wide receivers? And, of course, it may be Marshon Lattimore with some of them. But it still may be some elite wide receivers on the other end that he has to go up against. Say, for instance, we play a team like the Eagles again. You got Devontae Smith and you got A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown going against Marshawn Lattimore. What if it's one of those situations where Marshawn needs to be switched to the other side because he's getting too many penalties once again? You know, like, those situations happens. But then we have, I want y'all to think about this roster. At the bottom of the roster, we have a guy like Jonathan Jones or a guy like Noah Igbenogany. And then we got Noah Brown. Noah Igbenogany. Let me start over. Noah Igbenogany, right? We got Jonathan Jones. We got Jaylen Ramsey. We got Mike Sanderstill, Marshawn Lattimore. These are some guys we can have in our locker room. Why can't our locker room be elite? But if this was to happen, this is going to be a big purchase. And the reason is because he wants a lot of money. And he wants a lot of guaranteed money at that. So, and he wants a long-term contract. This would be perfect, though. But it's a lot of money. And there's still guys that got to get paid. Like Terry McLaurin is one notable person that needs to be paid. Laramie Tunsil is another person that needs to be paid. So how would we allocate this money? I don't know. This is a big purchase because it sounds like a good idea, but then you think about we still do not have a defensive end that we feel confident in. And we have Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Farrell, but it was rumors about us getting Trey Hendrickson. And what happens when Trey is free next season and we don't even have the money to get him? Or so it's like, yo, what do you want? What do we have the funds for? Because we've already allocated the money to where we needed it to go this season. So if we were to get Trey, we would have to restructure some things. And especially if we were to go out and get Jaylen Ramsey, I don't even know how much money we're going to have to play with. Like, Terry McLaurin is about to get 30. And then we got Deron Payne. So, does that mean that we get rid of Deron this season? Seeing that this is his last season and on contract. This is his last season. And, you know, in his last few years, he hasn't panned out to what we want him to be. So, would that be a person that we get rid of in order to create more money? But you never know what's going to happen because we have a guy like Adam Peters, and he never lets you know what he's going to do. And he ends up doing something different. And then I also seen something that said, if we get Jaylen Ramsey, we got to give up Jonathan Jones. And I don't see nothing wrong with that. They're both around the same age, but one has been to the Pro Bowl multiple times. So that's something to think about. And, you know, one guy may play the game safer than the other. So that's also something to think about. That's a reason why you might want to keep Jonathan Jones. And he's cheaper. And just because you go out and get a big name, sometimes people make it seem like that's all it takes in order for us to get to where we need to be. When in reality, that's not always the case. You can have teams that get to the Super Bowl and not have star players all around them, like Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, C.J. Gardner Johnson. You know, like, you don't have to have all of that. You don't. And you can have your core guys, you know, but it doesn't mean anything. You can have the greatest thing in the world, but them guys not able to work together to reduce their mistakes on the field, they won't make it. And that's something that we had a problem with when we went against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. We had a problem with reducing the issues, the problems. We had so many turnovers that we just gave the game away. So, would it be good to get him? Yes. But then you got to think about age. You got to think about money. Like, if this was a guy that was willing to, willing to take less money, I'm getting him without a doubt. And I might even pay him some more money. But he wants north of $20 million. And he wants a long-term contract. And I don't know. I don't know if we willing to give that money up, but this kind of seems like somewhat of what we dealt with Marshawn Lattimore, where we got him in a good time, where we had a free year with him, and we still got to pay Marshawn. So that it's money everywhere. It's money up in the air that we just have to figure out where it's gonna go. And you want to pay everybody, but the reality is you can't. And some guys gotta go. So right now, Jaylen Ramsey is only 30, and he still has some life in him. He's not going to be 31 until October 24th. So during the season, he's going to be 30. So if I was to add up and try to figure out how much time, if we were to add him, I could see him getting at least a 3-year contract, right? And probably pay him enough to keep him here for 2 years and see what he does during that time. And then, after the second year, get rid of him, trade him, release him, whatever the case may be, just so we could not overpay for this guy for a long term. Once guys get into their early 30s, that's when they start to slow down. And I don't care who you are. Most guys in the league start to slow down in their early 30s. This is not 1990 nothing. These guys ain't playing till they 40. These guys is not Darryl Green. So, and Darryl Green, in my opinion, was one of them guys that was just a Hall of Famer, bro. He was a Hall of Famer for a reason, bro. Like, he wasn't one of your typical guys, but it was guys playing in their late 30s back in his day. And it's just, they ain't eating the same food no more, man. These people eating McDonald's, man. And McDonald's ain't doing your body justice anymore. So, I don't know, man. Let me know how y'all feel about the situation. Do you feel like this is a good pick? Are you tired of people bringing it up? Do you feel like it's an overpay? I think you can look at it both ways, It could be a good move, but we know when it comes to Adam Peters, he's not doing what you think. So, let me know how y'all feel about it. And it's a lot to be seen. We still got to see who Trey Amos is. We got to see how he plays up against elite receivers. We got to see if he can lock down Terry McLaurin in practice. We got to see if Marshawn Lattimore is ready. And we got to see if Mike Sanders still can bring it back and play even better. We got to see if Jonathan Jones is going to be elite. We're going to see if he fits well in this offense, his defense. We got to see if Noah Igbenogany can come back and have a breakout season for us. Last season was okay, but can he do better? So that's a lot to see. And, we also got some guys that we got in free agency, undrafted free agents, and we want to see what they can be. But, oh, dang, I forgot about this, y'all. I'm out.